My question is about attention.
Yes.
Can you explain what attention
Yes.
is?
I'll let Anne explain it. Go ahead, Anne.
Well, Dr. Hora just commented that this idea that came out of the discussion this morning about mentally rising out of, transcending the sea of mental garbage, that actually is what ascension is. And that because most people think of human being in bodily terms, the assumption is ascension must be, something must happen to the body, it must go up. But actually, what must go up is in consciousness. And in consciousness, we rise up out of the thoughts that make up the sea of mental garbage.
And what must go up must never come down.
That's a different question.
Descension?
And that is that when in dialogue it comes back about friction, and the statement made that Jesus didn't achieve total frictionlessness until he ascended. According
Well,
mention.
well, according to the biblical records, Jesus had quite a bit of friction with the Pharisees. And the Pharisees, who were the intellectual elite of his time, and who were very contentious people, and perfectionistic in religious terms. And there was a lot of conflict. He openly attacked them and called them a generation of vipers, and like unto whited sepulchres, clean on the outside and full of corruption on the inside. So he had some friction.
Dr. Hora, can you explain what is spiritual discernment?
Yes. Spiritual discernment is a faculty which we all have, as I mentioned, in connection with the question about beholding. We can cultivate and develop this faculty, awaken ourselves to it, and essentially it consists of an ability to see spiritual qualities in people and spiritual values in the world. Jan brought up the example of a flower. See, to a florist, a flower is a commercial item, right? To a poet, a flower is an emotional experience. Yeah? To a botanist, a flower is a particular specimen of a group of plants. But from the standpoint of spiritual discernment, a flower is a thing of beauty, which is spiritual. So as we awaken to within ourselves this faculty of spiritual discernment, we see spiritual values and spiritual qualities and spiritual ideas everywhere. And if we learn to see, this transforms us. As thou seest, so thou beest. Yes.
We can't do
Form is formlessness, and formlessness is form. It is a mind-boggling statement of some Zen master. Is there anyone who can explain it? Now, would you say that love intelligence has a form, or is it just formless?
None of the above.
You see, do you understand it now? Reality is neither, has no form, neither is it formless. It is.
Getting worse. Dr. Hora, wouldn't that mean also that form is formlessness and formlessness is form? Wouldn't that have to do with the material world also?
Right.
Whereas physical forms are actually formless?
Right, exactly, yes. So in the physical world, in the human experience, everything is taking shape and losing its shape. If you look at us,
There are many that testify to that.
yes,
Well, you're saying in reality, there is no form, no formlessness.
right. That's what was said. Claudette, you ask a question.
For the mic. She doesn't have a question.
I didn't. I didn't really have a question. I was thinking about in the material world, there's duality,
Yes,
and in the real world, we extend to that and only what is, which is the single.
yes, right. It's non-dual.
Non-dual.
Reality is non-dual. No, yes?
Oh, I had another thought right then. I was thinking when you used the expression mind-boggling, and you were talking about mind. The thought came to me that it's only mind-boggling when we keep it human terms.
Of course.
Right.
Sure.
Mind-boggling in spiritual terms.
Well, of course, you are, how can boggle the mind of God?
Because it isn't just duality as in two things. It's three things and 99 things and geometric progressions of 999
Yes.
and immediately the mind boggles. When one day all of a sudden I started to do that and figured out that God didn't do that.
Now,
His mind didn't do geometric
how did you figure it out?
But that, you're saying that it's not just duality, it's tripality or whatever else you call it. I mean, there are no numbers are not relevant.
Yes. Well, the term duality comes from the biblical revelation that in the material world everything is good and evil. And originally the serpent who whispered into Eve's ear and said, if you eat of this fruit, this forbidden fruit, you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. Now, God doesn't know good and evil. Only humans have the impression that life consists, life is good and life is bad. Life is form and life is formlessness. See the duality. Now the Zen masters like to be tricky about their statements in order to challenge the intellect. And so the Zen master doesn't explain things so clearly as we do, you see. A little self-confirmation. The Zen master says, Form is formlessness, and formlessness is form. Now go do something with that. But actually he means it makes no difference. You're still in the material consciousness, as long as you are preoccupied with form or formlessness.
That's why when the body is full and then the body dies and deteriorates and returns to dust, and isn't that too bad, and nobody really cares, and all that dust is around, and it doesn't really matter if the poor lady has cancer. Does none of it matter?
No, we cannot say it doesn't matter. A human suffering is not to be disregarded. Problems are lessons designed for our edification. Have you ever heard about that? Yes? So, we are not callous. We are not indifferent to human suffering. We seek to use this suffering, this problem, for advancing to higher levels of spiritual consciousness. We don't use God to solve our problems. We use our problems to come closer to God. Yes?
Dr. Hora, is there a reason why you use place to describe the real places for love intelligence to dwell around them?
What do you mean exactly?
No, because for some reason I thought the be was the better term.
Yes, but the being is completely transfused by the presence of divine qualities. When God fills your consciousness, then you become just a place or a funnel. How do you like funnel? It's almost as good as baklava.
And
Eddie?
I guess I'm still trying to understand form and formless here. Could formlessness be the spiritual equivalent to form?
No.
Yeah.
Do you understand it now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then ask an additional question.
I don't understand. When I think of spiritual value, it's formless.
No. Spiritual values are not formless.
What is formless?
It's a form which has lost its form.
Oh, I think that a phonetic definition of it.
Right. Formlessness is just a shapeless form.
You made the example.
She likes that.
You made the example of gas, right, which is a formless substance. Yeah? But you cannot say that it doesn't have form.
I understand it much better.
Okay.
now, what about spiritual value then? You should elaborate on that if they're not formless.
They just are. They are substantial and they constitute the building blocks of reality. Yeah.
Where's the difference then between formlessness and nothingness? Or does that describe?
No, nothingness is the same as form, and form is the same as formlessness. So you can become even more mysterious if you want to learn to be a Zen master. And you can say form is nothing and formlessness is also nothing. Spiritual values are everything.
Phil? Yeah, wait.
I'm not sure if this would be correct, but wouldn't form or formless in one be a human perception, like
Yes.
shape or size or anything which wouldn't be valid in the spiritual realm?
Right, sure, correct, yes.
There you go.
Yes, Gray.
Dr. Hora one time that made this very killing. It said a leaf, form, green, form.
Yes, yes,
Wonderful, you know,
right.
thing. But if you have the beauty of was the
Yes, exactly. The life in it and the beauty in it and the intelligence which manifests itself through that form of life, that's reality.
Repeat that. That's the beginning of what you said. I didn't hear it.
The leaf is a form. The color green is formlessness. But the beauty of the leaf is a spiritual quality, manifesting a spiritual value, and that's reality. The leaf will wither and die, but the beauty remains. Yes,
The leaf and the greenness, they have no substance. That's what
Right.
form and formless are. The spiritual quality. the
exactly,
is substance.
right. Yes,
So does a substance always have a need to reveal itself?
yes, things manifest themselves. The whole universe and everything in it is here to manifest the reality of God. Everything and everyone, including you, are here for God.
And God must manifest itself, cannot be hidden.
Apparently, God wants it that way.
David?
I don't know if I'm going to get this
Yeah, Bill.
correctly, but it seems like I heard you say, or somewhere in one of the writings, that the person becomes a beneficial presence, that they don't stand out. And
Like a sore thumb.
right. What is the meaning of Jesus having so much difficulty and persecution and death and so forth? And in regard to that, when the more an individual, say in this room, becomes a beneficial presence, how do we see that in the light of Jesus?
Well, Jesus didn't have really personal difficulties. His teachings created great discomfort in people. And the conflict was between the teachings and the religious beliefs of his contemporaries. And if he would have refrained from teaching, he would have never had any problem.
So if we would refrain from teaching the principles of metapsychiatry and just be a beneficial presence, we probably won't have any problems.
Yes, that's the safe way to go. Right, the 11th principle. You know the 11th principle? You don't know the 11th principle? You're in trouble.
Yeah.
No, we speak nicer than that. Yes?
Isn't it true, like Jesus come in the Jewish tradition, under the laws of Moses, came to supposedly fulfill, not to do away with the law and the promise, but to fulfill.
Yes.
But also, isn't he, to some degree, even in the New Testament, some of those traditional beliefs were still in the apostles and the prophets right down to the end. Some of those traditions that were in the religious world is going into some degree, still teaching the laws of Moses, the traditions of Moses. We're realizing more and more that there's a lot of tradition mixed in to all truth.
Who are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the fact, I'm seeing that some of the things here, I was heard some discussion you did in the intermission, where people are talking about the church beliefs and the teachings that's come down.
Yes.
Like man was born in sin and shaped in iniquity. This was an idea that man was born bad, and therefore he has to go through the religious experience to be born again. I mean, all these things are being taught. Well, some traditional beliefs, it seems like it's taken from the Bible, would support that in the belief system. And what you're saying, it seems like is what we're doing here is to try to cut through all the tradition, all of the Jewish tradition, and get at the kernel of truth that was being said. Or if you read the Bible as a book, you find out a lot of that tradition is still comes through right down to the end of the Bible, and fulfilling certain things that was said in that tradition.
Well, metapsychiatry is a great help in understanding the Bible in the context of existential validation. You see? What is existential validation? Good question. All right. Would you answer? What do we mean by existential validation? It's in the book. Yes? Yeah, existential validation is a way of coming to know whether something is true or false. When Jesus was asked, how do we know who is telling us the truth? He said, by their fruits ye shall know them. So if we read the Bible correctly, that must have its beneficial consequences on our character, on our conditions, on our health, and on our participation in life. And that's the way we can tell that our understanding is correct or valid. By their fruits ye shall know them. And the existential perspective on the Bible makes it possible for us to rise above traditions and denominational and theological controversies. And so we say metapsychiatry is not a religion, but an epistemological approach to God realization. What is epistemological? Yes, it clarifies the nature of knowledge to such a point that true understanding, existentially validable understanding, can take place. So we are beyond all theological disputations and controversies. We're not interested in being right. We are seeking to be healthy and to live in the land of PAGL. Somebody mentioned to live in the land of PAGL. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Dr. That's very helpful. This morning I was thinking along the line and having come through a lot of tradition in the quote religious
Yes.
label. One of the things I discovered was that Mensa-Kathy truly fits into what your theme about the meaning. It's not the truth or realization, revelation has just been discovered in 9 years that it's psychiatry. It has always been. And
Right.
during my process, and several of us, I'm sure, that during those quote experiences, there was revelation of truth that brought the fruits of PAGL and new ovation, what real love was, and gratitude, which before I knew any of the labels, I didn't know that, with metapsychiatry, but it fit. It just put a cap on it. And what it did for me was it just translated me out of the religious form with condemnation, tradition, and all of that into the womb. I passed through from the
Yes.
metapsychiatry became that womb into this existential living,
Yeah.
which is applicable for me. And it's
Right.
just been beneficial presence in that way. So it didn't take away from truth, which has always been.
Yes.
But it redefined everything out of that form
Right.
into a beautiful way of it.
Yes.
I have one question. What is a process?
What is a process?
We hear so much today about all of these are new age groups and are processing plants to supposedly to process and bring forth a new generation. And we hear so much about the word process. We actually hear you coming.
Well, we don't use the word process very much. We prefer to use the word unfoldment or unfolding process. You know, when a flower ripens, it unfolds its blossom to full maturity. So when we study metapsychiatry, when we pray, when we meditate, we are participating in an unfolding process of consciousness, which is gradually unfolding to spiritual maturity. And that's the meaning of the word. Now, of course, in commercial and industrial language, process means doing something step by step, gradually. It's an operational term. In metapsychiatry, we abhor operational terms. Our vision is in terms of existentially unfolding process of consciousness. Yeah? Okay.
And you were speaking about unfolding, it brought to mind for me an example that I found in Anne's book, which was perhaps the most helpful to me, about the child who was on a beach and it's at sunset and he was looking at a pebble, and he's just a small child who's very much wrapped up in his world of the pebble, and although the sunset is there, and he has the ability to feel, that I think she called it a vast panorama and all the beauty that will be manifested in the sunset. Although he has the ability to see that, he just doesn't have that conscious awareness to look up in his little tiny pebble and realize, all that beauty. And that to me is being reborn, when you are able to rise above the pebbles in the sand and
Expand your awareness, right. That's very nice, Anne.
It was very helpful that the definition of evolving process is one of the controversies in my field in art education. Is the process important for the child, or is the product important? Sometimes it was always a conflict. And the idea of involvement, It's always there.
Yeah.
Something is dry.
Right,
Flower is always there. The question is something.
right, sure.
I keep
Yeah.
thinking the cold and it's right. I think the
Yeah.
process sounds better now.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Does anybody understand what you're talking about and not be a Christian? So can you be a Jew or an atheist and understand you?
Sure.
What do you think about Jesus? And those people just say, oh, he wasn't Christ.
He was,
Do they do that?
what? He was
Do
Christ?
they really say, oh, Jesus was a nice fellow, but he wasn't really Christ? Or do they have to accept the Christian
Well.
concept?
We don't have to accept anything. We seek to understand everything.
Christian sitting, or anywhere. Okay, but I'm curious. No, it has
What is a Christian?
saying he was that was so important.
What is our idea of a Christian?
Christianity.
Not Christianity, a Christian. Christianity is many things, ideology and ritual, and that's what a Christian is, someone who is imbued with Christly values. What are Christly values? Spiritual values. Anyone whose consciousness is imbued with Christly values is a Christian, even if he's
read when they're a student and they're learning. And I realized that if I had full understanding spiritual maturity, I would sail through it timely. However, I'm just a learner.
Yes.
How does one deal in the most expedient, constructive way with grief and the learner?
Well, grief is a problem which all of us have to face sometimes during our lives, and we have a specific approach to problems. Do you know the 11 principles? Yes?
I'm learning.
Yes, one of the principles is that problems are lessons designed for our edification. And Jesus said, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." What does that mean?
Your mourning brings you to spiritual
Yes,
hunger.
exactly. Exactly.
So bless the grief and don't try to escape from it.
Try to learn from it. Problems are lessons designed for our edification. Yes?
A general meaning of mourning then?
The general meaning to mourning is that mourning is an experience of loss, a painful loss of something cherished. And the Zen masters are warning us, cherish nothing.
How can that be in a long marriage?
And the Bible says, thou shalt love the Lord with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy might. So that if we are fully interested, committed to God realization, then everything will be secondary. And that's a great protection against grief and mourning. Yes.
Bob?
In one of your tapes, Dr. Hora, 60 seconds, Dr. Hora, or 60 seconds, 60 minutes.
Short version. In that, we were talking about the concepts, and a person asked you a question, and what I understand you replied, well, you have to have your concept of God has to be correct.
Valid. Yes, valid.
And so you began to describe what God was not, I believe, in words like this, that God is not loving. He is not a big daddy in the sky and gives out goodies. What I'd like to understand is what do you mean when you say God is not loving? Because I mix that up with love intelligence.
Yeah. God is not somebody who loves. God is love, which we have trouble with. You see, it's very hard for us to say God is love. You cannot give it a form. You see. But if you say God loves you, you imply God is somebody up there who loves you, and that somebody has a form, even if you don't see it. You see, we are so anxious to give a form to everything. But if you want to reach a valid realization of God, you must go beyond that idea that God is somebody who loves you. God is love, period.
He loves you, he can also not love.
Right, exactly. But love can never stop loving you. Yes?
You can,
We have the Father, thank you so much in the scripture, and that's what hung me up with
Yes.
this one.
Oh, that was puzzling me for a long time. And the only explanation that offers itself is that Jesus was talking to very primitive people who were unable to conceive of love without having an object. You see, so he compromised and says, love, God is a father who is a benevolent, loving person, and created a problem of anthropomorphism. Do you know what that is? Implying that God has a human form. Yeah.
A thought occurred to me once, Dr. Hora, about the image of God as Father, and it occurred to me that perhaps when Jesus used that, he was not using it to define God, but rather to define us. That is, by saying God is our Father, it's saying what we are, which is we are like God. But we hear it anthropomorphically, and so we say, oh, that means he's like us. But that the direction was pointing to our true being as offspring of God rather than the other way around.
It's irreconcilable that he has spirit and has no form, which is clear in scripture. Yet I saw
that,
Book Will Durant wrote on the world's greatest philosophers, relates to Spinoza and Spinoza's concept of what God was. And he points out in the book that when Jesus was teaching, he had to capture the imagination of the masses. The masses, if we look over the day, our level, are educated and so on. We only estimated 20 or 30 people that were literate in Jerusalem at that point in time. Imagine, there was no education whatsoever, so the teaching was something that really kept their attention. So I think that relates to what the discussion points prior. Capture the imagination, you have to make it human, really can relate to it.
Yes, yeah.
Jess. Jess, yeah, give him the mic.
Speak up, Jess.
Since we're all sharing what our ideas of why Jesus spoke about God as Father, I just like to my two same thing, which I got from somebody else. There's people.
Borrowed money?
Yeah. And, we have to keep in mind that Jesus was, as you said, Dr. Hora, talking to primitive people of a different culture, of different era. And he was addressing himself to certain ideas that people had. And one of those ideas was Father Abraham. And he wanted to substitute, for example, that concept with the true Father, which is God, he might say. And the people in that particular culture could understand that. He had no idea that we'd be talking about what he said now. You know what I'm saying? In other words, when we read the Bible, it's a Semitic book.
Yeah. But he had an inkling, He said, He said, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away.
There's a lot more that could be said about it.
Yes.
Yeah, Janet?
When I get involved in Valley 50, compounded with a lot of milk, what is it that I need to know from one to the other?
We need to know that guilt and shame are self-confirmatory. Guilt and shame are, is that clear to everybody? Guilt and shame are self-confirmatory ideas.
And are grief and mourning self-confirming also?
Definitely, all problems are.
Is Janet referring to regret in the 3 R's?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
that's different.
Yes. What's the difference between guilt and regret?
In meta-psychiatry, we have the 3 R's. Recognizing a problem, to regret it, and to reform. And she is referring to regret. And now we'd like to understand how that differs from feeling guilty or be ashamed.
Yes.
Guilt implies blame,
Right.
and regret is just, perhaps implies the desire to change something.
Yes, it implies, yes. But regret is just when we regret something that is happening to us. But when we feel guilty or blame ourselves, that's self-confirmatory. We say, I am guilty. See? So, guilt is not valid. Neither guilt nor self-blame nor shame. They are self-referential emotional states. Whereas regret is a condition of awareness that some mistake has happened. So there is no self-confirmatory quality in it. Yes?
That also has to do with the idea that you talked about earlier about being possessing.
If we're possessive, then we identify with the mistakes we make rather than seeing them as designed for it,
Right, yes.
which is another form of self.
Self-confirmatory ideation, yes. Yes, Betty?
Having a conference at the same time we had Valentine's Day,
Yes?
it seems like a good time. Could you maybe help me to go beyond? I have the idea of love as being so much between two people or being something that can come and go. And I have a difficult time totally changing my concept. I still even think in terms of there even being a possibility of God's love not being infinite or always present. Could you speak a little bit on the topic of love, maybe? Real loud.
Well, if you understand funnel consciousness, then you will understand that God's love is funneled through us into the world. We cannot give love and we cannot get love. Love is. And if we are open to divine love, then it expresses itself through us in the form of benevolence, non-personal, non-conditional benevolence. That is our definition of love. Non-personal, non-conditional benevolence flowing from God through individual consciousness.
What is benevolent?
Goodwill. Yes?
It almost seems like we have to, right? Learn it in vocabulary.
It could help. It's very important to find the right way of expressing these ideas. Otherwise, we are easily confused. Like, for instance, we mentioned experiencing and realizing something. If you understand the difference between these two words, then your understanding will be more precise and things will be easy. Otherwise, we are very confused. Using the wrong words can create a lot of misunderstandings.
I notice you're very careful now. Yeah, it's funny when you tell.
Well, you noticed well.
It's like the analogy could also be made is with a newborn. A newborn has to learn the language. And we have to learn, since our language is, we are brought up in the language of the human experience. And we will need to learn the spiritual language.
And they shall speak with new tongues.
Tongues. Yeah. Yeah.
It's right.
Yes.
Primarily because the fine line of meaning means the whole key of what you're saying.
Right.
Not just a vocabulary exercise.
Exactly, of course. Yes, yes.
Very good. Yeah.
Sorry, person to try to, or to try to think and speak without thinking what or just thinking out loud.
Now that would be an operational approach, wouldn't it? Right. Yes?
Hi, Dr. Hora. I had a question. I wanted some clarification on a question asked earlier concerning the source of our ignorance. You mentioned, or you referred to the biblical story of the fall of man. And what is the feeling in psychiatry concerning this story of the fall of man? Is it Ellen or?
No, ignorance is not originating in the fall of man. Ignorance originates from the tendency to judge by appearances. We misinterpret life by judging by appearance. That's the source of all ignorance.
What is the source of the tendency to judge by appearances? But what is, I guess what I'm getting at is, the question that was asked earlier was if man is a spiritual being and created perfectly by God, and yet now it's ignorant. Can man choose this? Does it stay the free will of his human mind, or what? I'm confused about.
Now you are reasoning from a historical genetic standpoint, which tries to pin down what happened, when it happened, and who is to blame for it. And we cannot reason that way because we are then entering into an illusory reality. But we can ask, what is the meaning of this condition which universally man seems to be afflicted by? And here the story of the fall of man is an allegory which says that man has separated himself from the conscious awareness of God and looked around, and everything suddenly appeared to him as being good and bad. And this, whenever we are separated from God, we see life as good and evil. and that is the dualistic impression of reality. And within the context of this dualistic assumption about life, we judge things by appearances and continuously misinterpret everything and run into trouble, both in our responses and by communicating with others in terms of our dualistic viewpoint.
I can't understand that, but did you say man separated himself from the consciousness of God?
Man is constantly doing that. Whenever we say, I want this, I don't want this, I am this way, I am not. Whenever we think in terms of self-confirmation, we are saying there is no God, there's only me and you, maybe. But there's only me, there's no God. We are constantly separating ourselves from God.
And this is just something that we accept.
It is common sense. That's common sense. After all, you look in the mirror, where is God? You only see yourself, right?
Really, it doesn't make common sense to me, Dr. Hora, that if enlightenment is such a desirable thing, which I really think it is, what is the meaning of our separating ourselves from God? Something that is so desirable. And here we have all this suffering.
No. How do you know that it's desirable?
I guess from existential validation. That, well, it is. I mean,
If it were so, you would immediately be enlightened. You're lying.
I have an intellectual awareness.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, what is desirable really is bragging.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing we enjoy in life.
Correctly.
Enlightenment is just an idea which we heard, which is presented, but it's not really. That's why we say that it's very easy to become enlightened. It is just difficult to be interested in it. Even though if we profess to be interested in it, we are not really, let's face it.
Is Sue also?
Yes, Sue?
Somewhere in the Bible about Satan being an angel.
Who? Satan. Yes.
And then when he had the idea of being better than God, or then he would put in a place somewhere.
Yes.
Now, is that equally true? I mean, is that symbolic of our tendency, the self-confirmatory idea?
Exactly right. It's interesting that Satan has another name. It is called Lucifer. And you know what that means, Lucifer? The bearer of light. Yes, but the devil calls light, darkness is light to the devil. So whenever the devil is active in consciousness, he sheds darkness and calls it light. So it's a very shrewd fellow, this the devil. But in metapsychiatry, we have another name for the devil, and that makes things clearer. If you get used to this very difficult term, self-confirmatory ideation, most people find it difficult to make peace with it, but it's helpful.
Elizabeth?
I noticed that I take to not see myself as a body, that I began to manifest different symptoms. Like I'd get a cold and I would keep to understand that was converting my body. And when that would clear up and I would get a big scab on my forehead, and that would clear up, the lack of ego seeking to continue to focus on the body.
Yes.
I'm feeling sleepy now, and
Yes.
I'm wondering is that my ego wanting to,
Get away from here.
yeah. Is that what that is?
Yes. But to seek to not see ourselves as a body is the same as to seek to see ourselves as a body. In order to move in the right direction, we must say neither body nor not body, but love intelligence. That's all.
You see, lady there. Yes,
You know,
ma'am.
I think Dr. Hora, the answers are more important than the questions.
Okay.
You didn't know that?
That's why you can't hear the questions on the tape. Go ahead.
All I was going to ask is, you know, it's hard for us to say self-ideation.
Self-confirmatory.
And so I thought maybe it'd make it a whole lot easier if you call it self-ideation confirmation. You could call it sick.
You'll have to put in a little effort into that word.
Right.
Yeah.
It becomes very dear to you after a while. I know some of love it. It looks like we are getting to the end of our time, and we want to thank you very much, Dr. Hora, for this very inspiring afternoon. Thank you very much.